Please stand for the anthem if you don't mind. Thank you. And the pledge. Appreciate that.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Also join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Appreciate y'all being here today. Oh, holy crap, I got a magnet on this. There we go. Appreciate y'all being here today. Thank you for taking the time to come out. Probably just cover some remarks for about 5 minutes and then try to dig right into everybody's questions. Want to start just by saying this is the third one for today, so I got a little experience with this. I'm up here. I'm the representative. I'm happy to take any remarks that you want to throw my way. I ask that you try to, keep your remarks limited to the individuals around you. They were not the elected representative. To be courteous to one another, the people sitting alongside of you. If you're not going to be courteous to the people sitting alongside you, there are our sheriff's deputies here that are going to remove people that are making it impossible for other people to be a part of this program. So again, direct whatever remarks you want to make towards me. I'm a big boy, I can take it, but other people didn't come and ask for that. So I'd ask that you, refrain from engaging in other people in that way. I do want to give you a little bit on all of our staff that's here. So just so you know who our staff is, whether you're calling to Washington, D.C., and you want to speak to somebody, whether you have something that you need to deal with here, know who these people are, put a face with them so that you can, get their cards, write down their information, my information, whatever it is that you might need. So we have, of course, we have Jordan right here, working out of Florida. We have Isabella. Is Isabella in the room? Do we have the rest of our staff coming? She's doing check-ins. There's still two people trying to get it. All right, we have Eddie, Marine Corps veteran, Jordan, Navy veteran. Eddie's at the door as well. My apologies. Angel is where? Angel's right here. We have Amy in the room here. Amy's still doing check-ins. Very good. Christian, where's Christian hiding in here? Christian's, man, everybody's still doing check-ins right now. Sorry about that. I don't mean to introduce people that aren't here. Derek, is Derek in the room? Derek's standing right here, working here in St. Lucie. David, where's David hiding at? Doing check-ins? Okay, very good. Kate is standing in the back of the room, white shirt, raising her hand. Ross is in here somewhere. Ross is back there. Jake in here, my brother amputee. All right, well, we appreciate everybody being in here today. These are your staff, and we have a few others up in Washington, D.C. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to finish with this comment and then go to questions. We're going to disagree on things. I think everybody knows that we are going to find disagreement. We're going to find agreement on things as well. We're going to find agreement and disagreement. No matter how much disagreement we find on any of the issues, please never let that be a hurdle to you reaching out to our office for assistance. No matter what it is that you need. If you need help with Department of Veterans Affairs or the Social Security Administration or the, Medicare, or you name it, anything, any agency that you could possibly need help with. If you don't like that it's taking you more than 5 minutes to get somebody on the phone and you're tired of hearing the hold music play, reach out to my office, my staff. We will help you with whatever agency it is. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a non-registered voter, anything. It has nothing to do with the way that we will go to work for you all. So please put us to task, regardless of where we find our agreement or disagreement today. Let us go out there and go to work for you if you have something that the federal government is affecting in your life and you need us to assist. In that, I would say I thank you all for taking the time to come out today, to voice your concerns, and to hear answers from me on things that are going on. And I look forward to hearing from every single one of you. We're going to have, who's going to be carrying around the mics? Jordan and Stephen right now, or Derek and Stephen right now are going to be carrying around microphones. We're going to give everybody about 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds to say what you want, ask the question that you want. If you don't get through a question in about 90 seconds, we're going to ask that we give somebody else the microphone so that people have time, because sometimes when you do these things, people just talk for 10 minutes and then you don't get to questions. So that's going to be the process by which this goes. And Jordan and Stephen, I'm going to let you guys handle it from here.
First question. New York Cat race in first, so we'll start with you, sir. You'll stand up and state your name.
My name is Dave Ho.
Stand by.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your service and your sacrifice.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question. How did Pete Hegseth get to be Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, very good.
He served in the military, but he was an anchor, a weekend anchor for Fox News. And no, I'm just wondering how he got to be, he has no management skills for a $300 million round of Secretary of Defense.
The way that Pete Hegseth became Secretary of Defense is he spoke to President Trump about what President Trump's vision is about the Department of Defense, discussed how it is that he could execute that vision for the Department of Defense, whether it be removing DEI programs from the Department of Defense, upping recruitment in the Department of Defense, which had been woefully falling behind, making sure that we have the most capable military to go out there and be a deterrent to our enemies, and God forbid, if needed, be the most capable fighting force on the face of the earth. And he explained how he would do those things to the president, and the president said, "You're going to be my choice for this job." I'd make a quick analogy in a comparison, if you'd allow me for a moment. Y'all remember that movie about the 1980 hockey team, Miracle? One of my favorite movies. I don't know if you all like it. Beautiful movie. And the coach, Herb Brooks, he's in the very beginning of it, and he's saying, well, here's the team, here's the list of people I want on the team. And the other coaches are saying, "You've only been here one day. What are you doing? You got a whole week of this tryout, and how are you going to pick this guy? You don't even have the best players." And Coach Herb Brooks says to him, he says, "Look, I'm not looking for the best players, I'm looking for the right players." President Trump was looking for the right players to go out there and execute the vision of what needed to happen inside of these agencies, and he chose Pete Hegseth to do so. Thank you for your question, sir. I appreciate your question. Ma'am, how you doing, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Robin Cass.
Hey, Robin.
I want to preface my question with just saying that I've been a poll watcher for a couple of elections, and the elections, having a front row, they've been run well, very honest, encouraging everyone to vote, which I think is the ultimate goal here. So with that said, you voted yes on the SAVE Act, restricting your constituents' rights to vote by requiring...
Great question.
Restricting your constituents' right to vote by requiring voters to share a passport or proof of citizenship. Why do you want to disenfranchise millions of voters across our country, as well as voters in our own districts? It's un-American.
Thank you. Let's talk about a couple of things as it relates to the SAVE Act. So number one, I think it's important that people that vote in our elections be legal to vote in our elections, and I'm going to work to ensure that. specific parameters of the SAVE Act, and I was speaking to a gentlelady in the rear that had some specific questions about if you're married and you took on a different name and your ID doesn't reflect that, what has to take place? And it's a very important question. So another part of the SAVE Act that very specifically references that says each and every state has to go out there and come up with parameters for how they deal with individuals whose names might not be reflected in the same way because of a marriage or something else, and make sure that they come up with the parameters to deal with that so that individuals that are legal can in fact vote. The other thing that I would tell you all, real ID, that term doesn't always mean a lot of things to everybody. If I say, oh, do you have your real ID? You might have no idea what I'm talking about. If you pulled out your driver's license and you renewed it in roughly the last year and a half, you probably have a real ID. It has a like a star up in the top right corner of it. You have already been vetted in that way to say, okay, this person not only has a driver's license, but is a legal individual to vote. You have that real ID already. As you go out there and renew your driver's licenses next month or next year or on whatever birthday it is that you go and do that, you will have that. And again, passport being the gold standard of identification literally across the globe. The American passport is literally the gold standard. That being another example of something that you can go out there and use as another form of identification. So the other options, real ID, like I just spoke about, so things like that. You gotta have an identification to vote. Next question. Just like you need an identification to buy a six-pack or a pack of smokes. Absolutely.
Thank you, Congressman, for being here and for your service to our country.
Mostly
My name is Kathleen Stublow, and I'm a St. Louis County resident. With all the money that is possibly going to be saved by Doge, those who are legal Social Security holders, we're not illegal, we're legal, we've paid into the system. Do you think we're going to see an increase in our Social Security?
Very good question. Increasing, it's a great question. Nobody's asked that today about what about an increase in Social Security benefits. Let me talk about that on a couple of different fronts. Number one, as it relates to Doge, it's important to say what Doge is and what Doge is not, right? Doge is, let's call it an auditing firm. Doge literally doesn't make one decision. They don't make one decision. They go into an agency, they don't make one decision. Doge goes in, if you want to hear the answer is the answer. Doge goes into an agency, let's say the State Department, where they started. I'm chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, so I'm very familiar with State Department things as the chairman of that committee. So they go into the State Department as auditors, say, okay, you said you spent this, and this, and 1,000 other things. Show me the receipt for this, and 1,000 other things. One of the things that they found was there's essentially no receipts for many of these things, or no explanation about where that money was actually spent, or things like that. And then they make a recommendation to the head of that agency. In this case, it's the Secretary of State in the example that I'm giving, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Hey, Secretary of State, here's what we found. You guys have this many license agreements for software. You have 150 license agreements for software. You're only using 2 of them. The other 150 haven't been logged into in the last 3 years. So that's a waste right there. You're operating in these embassies on equipment from the 1980s, so you need to update this because it's very inefficient. You have a place like this where you have 6 people doing the same job that one person can do, so you can create an efficiency there, and this is where the dollars 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. So Secretary, go out there and make the decisions for yourself. That's what Doge actually is, right? Now, as it relates to raising Social Security, that's something that to change benefits, which, you know, would love to see everybody's Social Security benefits be raised. That would have to be an act of Congress that takes place. You're not going, let me say this concretely and say it 5 more times, there will not be cuts to Social Security. There will not be cuts to Social Security. There will not be cuts to Social Security. I know that you didn't ask about this specifically, but this bears on Social Security, so I'm going to say these things about Social Security because having done another 2 town halls today, I know that people have questions on this. So let me tell you what some things are and some things aren't. Some people have heard of the way that this has been phrased in other rooms, say, well, you have this budget bill going on that's going to cut Social Security and Medicare. Have some people heard that? Does that sound like some people have heard this budget? You voted for a budget that's going to cut Social Security and Medicare? So the budget reconciliation, that's what the full title of this is, budget reconciliation, cannot by any way, shape, or form touch anything that is what's known as mandatory spending, non-discretionary spending. What is mandatory non-discretionary spending? That is Social Security, Medicare, interest on the debt. Those things cannot be touched in budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation only deals with other things that are considered discretionary. So anybody that tells you this budget bill is doing something to cut Social Security and Medicare, just patently false. It is not doing one thing, place anything with that whatsoever. President Trump has made the commitment, absolutely not one touch to cutting Social Security. I'm giving you that commitment, not one anything to cutting Social Security. I'm going to make one other point about this, and then we'll go on to the next question. And this goes more to the political side of it, because sometimes I don't talk about a lot of politics in these, but this is an important political point. And you can go back and you can check the record. If you went to my first candidate that I ran against, Randy Perkins, he said Brian Mast is going to cut Social Security and Medicare. And if you went 2 years later to the next candidate, that candidate, Lauren Bear, said, you know what, Brian Mast is going to cut Social Security and Medicare. And if you went to the candidate after that, Pam Keith, that one was running ads that said Brian Mast is going to cut Social Security and Medicare. And the 2 ones after that said Brian Mast is going to cut Social Security and Medicare. Guess what hasn't happened? No cuts to Social Security and Medicare, because what they're saying is patently false. And at a certain point, people have to ask the questions of the people running those ads. How many years in a row are you going to come out here and lie to us? Because they're batting 1,000 and lying to you. What's next? Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I have a question regarding the deficit.
Yes, please.
Okay. The current legislation that's working its way through Congress that's going to extend tax breaks to multimillionaires and billionaires. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated about $4 trillion additional deficit over the next 10 years. So that's a great concern, because that also touches on Social Security, because as you know that you're not proposing to cut Social Security now, but if Social Security cuts and Medicare is not sure that within 10 years, it's only going to pay out 75% of what it's paying now. So my question is, what are you going to do about the budget deficit? Are you plans to start paying it down? And we're not talking about those costs, not going to be enough savings to bring down the budget deficit. And what plans do we have to shore up Social Security and Medicare?
Very good question. Let's talk about a couple of those things. Let me ask you a question for the purpose of having a good dialogue on. It's not meant to stump you in any kind of way. Where do the dollars that go into Social Security come? Where do they come from? They come from you, but more specific, maybe even more specifically, where do they come from? Right? When you go to work, from wages, right? So the most important thing that can be done to make sure that Social Security is most sustainable is to have more people in the workforce, more people paying into Social Security, right? That's the domino that takes effect, right? So the more people in the workforce, the more people paying into Social Security. We can all acknowledge that this is the way the program works, right? Did you want to follow on before we continue? Go ahead.
There's more people retiring.
No doubt.
We know that their ratio from workers to retirees is decreasing.
It's just important to say this is where it comes from. I agree with you. There are more people retiring. So the point is, we need to work on changing that math equation, number one. How do we get more people in the workforce? Part of what you see going on is a turn inward to say this ties to tariffs. I'm going to put up a slide related to tariffs, just so that you all can read behind me some of the ways that these other countries tariff the United States of America. And it might help to explain to you where there's not fair trade and where it's important that we turn inward to say, let's see that production go inside of the United States of America. It sounds like you're booing production going into America. You're booing American jobs. If you're booing right now, you're booing that we put Americans to work. So if you put Americans to work, you have more people paying into Social Security. And to me, that's not worth booing. So let's go out there and look at where there are very specific trade imbalances. We can look at agriculture sector. We can look at manufacturing sector. We can look at any different place. I'm happy to give you points on it. So you don't have the microphone. Let's be respectful to the other people. So when we talk about manufacturing, let's talk about the barrier as it relates to the European Union. European Union sends in last year a little bit over 800,000 automobiles into the United States of America. They imported a little bit over 150,000 automobiles into Europe. That's an example of a trade deficit. You get more automobiles manufactured in America that are going at an equal par into Europe. We have more American jobs. When you have tariff fights going on and you have Taiwan Semiconductor saying, we're going to open up a multi-$100 billion factory, or you have Honda who said we were going to open up the largest factory anywhere in the world to build Honda Civics in Mexico, and President Trump says you can do it if you want, but not one of those Civics are coming into America, and they say, okay, fine, we'll build the factory in America. That's more American jobs. I'm just giving you a couple of examples of this brings manufacturing back into the United States of America, more people paying into Social Security. So that's one part of it, more people paying into Social Security. That's one part of it. Another part of this is absolutely what you brought up. It's not the whole egg of it, but it's a part of it. Where can you find cuts in the system? Let's talk about one of the cuts that some people care about. Medicaid. Why does Medicaid matter to talk about with Floridians? Because where does it affect Floridians, and where does Medicaid, different than Medicare, not affect Floridians, right? So you may remember back during what was known as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, that's when there was something done known as Medicaid expansion. Sorry, I don't mean to keep talking to this side of the room and not this side of the room. Now, there's something done known as Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion costs roughly $1.9 trillion, give or take a few dollars there. That was the cost of Medicaid expansion. So Medicaid expansion expanded it to individuals that don't meet the original definition of who that program was set up and created for. So if you see a cut in Medicaid specifically, it's to bring it back to what was the original intent of Medicaid, the original people that was set for, the most indigent, the most disabled, that sort of thing. Where this affects Floridians or doesn't affect Floridians is this. States got to choose whether they were going to or not going to expand Medicaid. Florida is not a Medicaid expansion state. So where you see them going back to the original definition of Medicaid, that does not affect Floridians because Florida did not expand Medicaid. So that's another, let's say, roughly $2 trillion. Then you're talking about things going on with DOGE, cuts inside of many, many agencies to be more accountable. That's another place. And then you talk about GDP growth with tax cuts. As an example, you brought up tax cuts. Very important tax cuts. And I'm going to put up another slide for you on that one just to say this is important to note. This is important to note where the actual tax cuts were. Give me the slide that shows the actual percentages in terms of where tax cuts. Not this one. Not this one, but the other slide, Kate.
Congressman, just a second.
Yep.
We are going to do this in a very professional manner. The more that you shout out and the more that you yell, and it's disrespectful and we have to stop, the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office is here for that reason, and they will remove you. So it is that reason why I have to be in front of you specifically.
So I don't want to bore you with slides. I'm going to show you this one. If you all want to see the slide before that, I can show you. It's a slide that literally shows every tax bracket and where every tax bracket was cut, but very specifically to this, the ones that were cut the most were the tax brackets on the lowest end. You can see right there, down 13.5%, it was lowered. You look at the top 1%, that was cut just under 6%. I agree with tax cuts for everybody across the board. I want all of you to keep more of your money. I want your small businesses to see the continuation of the tax cuts that took place where if you're a small business pass-through, the first 20% that you make or 20% out of what you earn does not get taxed. That's a big deal for every small business owner. If you made $100,000, that they only tax you on $80,000. It's a big deal to go out there and say, these are the other tax cuts that we want to see. No tax on Social Security, no tax on seniors, no tax on tips, no tax on military bonuses. These are all things that we're trying to put forward. And it does result in economic growth as well because we are a consumer economy. But you make a very great point, sir, about the numbers do have to balance. And I appreciate you for making that point, sir. Thank you for the conversation today, and I hope that was valuable to everybody.
Hi, my name is Lee Sanderall. Thank you for being here. I have one question that has the first slide on it that said 300% dairy.
Go back to that if you don't mind, Kate.
Thank you. You said 300% from Canada, American butter and cheese. Isn't the real figure because we don't export enough there to trigger that amount? We are not near getting there where that limit is. And I also have another question. When is Congress going to put the money they have borrowed from Social Security back into Social Security?
Great question. I don't believe in pillaging the Social Security Trust Fund 100%. I'm sorry that that's taken place. It should not take place 100%. As it relates to tariff barriers, you're talking about Canada specifically. There are companies that they plan in their business models, hey, we're not going to send it here, we're not going to send it here because we don't have the market. We don't get to go out there because, I'm going to give you a different example just because I have a better number on it, but we're talking about apples to apples. If we talked about a Tahoe being sold, the base price of a Tahoe in the United States of America is about $60,000 at the most base model. If you were to take that exact same vehicle and bring it over to the EU to say like Norway or something like that, they would charge you roughly $100,000 for the same vehicle. The point is, a lot of times they're not even sending these items because there's not a market for them because of the barriers that they put on. And not all trade barriers are tariffs, mind you. Sometimes it's tariff numbers. There's specifically India saying, we're just going to tariff every one of your agriculture items at 100%, while we do 10%. Not all of it is that. Sometimes there are trade barriers like Japan, as an example, that will go out there and say, well, we're not going to put a tariff on your automobiles, but we're going to make it that if you're an American automobile manufacturer, you can't go out there and buy land to put a Ford dealership up there, so essentially you can't sell the vehicles to begin with. The point is there are other kinds of trade barriers that exist as well, but I appreciate you asking about the tariffs, so thank you. Where are we looking here? Back there? Thank you, Jordan.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your service, and you definitely suffered for us.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor.
Being a vet myself, I'm insulted that the present administration and you being my congressman would get rid of any or propose 80,000 employees of the Veterans Administration. Yeah, but I'd just like to ask you, how are you going to stop that happening?
Number one, thank you for your service, sir. What branch? Navy? Guy next to you is Navy too. So thank you for your service. We still get our back and forth. I apologize. I couldn't really hear what your question was. Can you just say your question for me again one time? Say the question part.
The administration is letting 80,000 veteran administration people go.
Oh, very good. Thank you. So let's talk about the Department of Veterans Affairs, cuts in different places. I talked about this in part already, but I'll give some specific Department of Veterans Affairs examples as well. So number one, DOGE is going in there and saying, listen, if there's 6 employees doing the job that 1 employee can do, that's not going to take place. We're talking about admin side right now, not talking about healthcare side. We'll talk about healthcare side in a minute. Right now I'm just talking about administrative functions. Give you a very specific example of an administrative function in the Department of Veterans Affairs. You had a company being paid $380,000 a month to go out there and do very, very basic IT work, $380,000, basic website updates, things like that, not literally creating the website or anything. That went down to, hey, you no longer have this contract, and instead there are just 2 employees in the Department of Veterans Affairs that can do that to the same level. We didn't need to pay $380,000 a month in order to get that done. Those are the kind of things that are going on the administrative side in order to make sure that it's an accountable agency. Let's talk about the healthcare side of it, what the purpose of the VA is, which is to make sure to facilitate home loans, burials, things related to the Veterans Benefit Association and healthcare very specifically. There have been very real cuts to veterans healthcare, and let me explain how those took place in the past and how those healthcare cuts are now being restored. So you got to go back in time with me, go to the first Trump administration, and there was a rapid expansion, a great expansion, especially in wake of the VA scandals that had gone on before that, to allow veterans to go be seen outside in the community, outside of the actual hospitals. For whatever reason a veteran might decide. Maybe they don't like where they have to park, maybe they don't like the doctor, maybe it was too far of a drive. Whatever the reason the veteran decided, I want to go see somebody closer in my community, they said, okay, you can get a referral from your doctor to go see that. And that happened exhaustively throughout the Trump administration. The Biden administration came in and they said, we are going to cancel, this was known as community care. And these community cares, you get a referral for maybe 12 months, maybe 18 months, maybe 24 months, whatever your referral is for. And they said, as their referral comes up to go see their mental health care provider over here that they're seeing in Port St. Lucie, instead of driving down to West Palm Beach, tell them that referral is not being re-upped and they have to go back inside of the VA. That is a real contraction of what actual health care looks like. We are going back to making sure that whether a veteran wants to be seen inside of the VA, great, by all means, you can be seen inside of the VA if that's your preference, or if you want to go back to receiving community care because you like the doctor that you had in Port St. Lucie and you didn't have to drive as far, you can go see that mental health provider, you can go see that physical therapist or that person that you want to see. And it goes back to that to make sure that we bring back an expansion of veterans' health care benefits instead of the contraction that took place. To speak about one other thing, just because we're talking about veterans, let's talk about the budget for the VA and whether there have or have not been cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs in terms of their dollars and cents that are going there. So number one, we passed something, I don't know, I'm going to say about a month ago, known as a CR. A CR stands for a continuing resolution. That means you resolve to continue the appropriations of the past. You're continuing to fund agencies. That's what all of that means. And so in the CR, there was full funding for Medicare, there was full funding for Social Security, there was full funding for the Department of Veterans Affairs. We voted on all of those things. In the House of Representatives, there was only one Democrat that voted on it. I think it was Jared Golden. He was the only Democrat. In the Senate, thankfully, we had a little bit more help. Senator Schumer, I don't thank him very often, but Senator Schumer and Democrats in the Senate did vote yes on that as well. Why? Because it fully funded Social Security, Medicare, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. But those are a few things that are going on there. I hope I answered your question. I think I did, but appreciate it. By all means, you got a follow-up? Go ahead, sir.
Well, with the community care, I'm still getting that, so I don't know why you say we can't get that.
They haven't cut it for everybody. I'm not telling you every person has been cut, but I can tell you it has literally been one of the largest caseloads that we've had to deal with is veterans calling just out of the blue. Hey, Congressman, my referral for whatever it is has been canceled. They told me I can't have it, and this is something that we started digging into. And we were told very directly by the VISN, the group over our local VA medical center, this is what's taking place. We're making it so individuals have to come back in. And I was told very specifically, conversationally, very specifically, listen, even if somebody doesn't have a provider that they can see in West Palm Beach, if we need to send them down to the King Clinic in Fort Lauderdale or down to Miami, that's what we're going to do is send them there. Obviously, that would be significantly inconvenient for somebody to have to go from Fort Pierce down to one of those places. But this was a real conversation that took place. So I'm just telling you that's coming to an end, that contraction of healthcare for many, and it's going to be reverted back to, hey, you go be seen where it is that you want to be seen because you consider that that's the best care for yourself. So thank you for your question, sir, and your service. Where are we going? Steve.
Hi,
Hello.
Brian Mast. First, I just want to thank you so much for your sacrifice to our country.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that 275 individuals were sent to CCOT prison in El Salvador under the Alien Act. And this is an act that wasn't invoked since World War II when we sent Japanese citizens to internment camps, one of the darkest periods in our history. The government is claiming that they were violent criminals, and yet none of these men were given due process under our laws. Many have no criminal record in the U.S. How do you justify the removal of these individuals, not to their home countries, as a deportation would provide for, but to a notorious torture prison? And what other antiquated law will this administration invoke to bend the rules and defy our Constitution? At what point will you stand up and defend people?
Thank you for your question. Number one, a law is not antiquated if it's on the books, it's on the books. If we don't want to enforce the law, get rid of the law. Number two, individuals were adjudicated for deportation at various times, sometimes in the first Trump administration, sometimes even during the Biden administration, sometimes now in the second Trump administration. If they're adjudicated for deportation, deportation. They're going to be deported. Entering our country illegally is very literally a crime. And in some cases, some of the countries that were their countries of origin were just refusing to take individuals back. That's something, but individuals were traversing through other countries in order to get to the United States of America, so they did pass through these other countries. And so in that, I would just say again, if somebody breaks the law, if they break our immigration laws, they are going to be deported. Yes, ma'am.
Jump on that lady's question.
Please, by all means.
How are we doing that? And she's speaking clearly about the Constitution. Those people didn't have due right. And they're supposed to be part of us. And you fought for us. That's not how you send someone
Ma'am,
back.
they've been adjudicated for deportation. They entered our country illegally, and they have been adjudicated for deportation. And to the statement of proving that's their personal information, and I'm not going to give you 1 ounce of it. Stephen. Oh, please, by all means.
What are we doing for those people that I just heard today, the man in Maryland? His chances of returning to his family after being here this long is slim to none. How do you allow that to happen? How come if all these things are true that you're saying, we're not cutting Social Security, we're not cutting Medicaid, how come your voice isn't out there saying, hey, people in Florida, this is Brian, I want to assure you, the people in Florida, none of this is happening. How come we don't hear you?
Ma'am, I'm here saying it to you, and I've said it 2 other times today at 2 other town halls. And if any of the folks in media want to ask me questions, I think, they can be a part of this town hall too. They can attest to the fact that when they call, when they have questions and they call, I answer their questions as well. So if a message gets out there, I do my best or if a message needs to get out there, I do my best always to get that message out to the community, whatever it might be. Now, to speak very specifically about so you brought up specifically Social Security. There are things that we work on in Congress, and this is something that I work on certainly when it ends up coming to the floor of the House as a big bill as it moves forward. It is not that time yet. I just telling you, I don't sit on the committee of jurisdiction that deals specifically with that, the Ways and Means Committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee. I am chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I also sit on the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure. So I'm happy to answer questions on it, but just to tell you, it's not my work as a day-to-day basis until it actually comes to the floor for a vote, but more than happy to address questions on it. Just a lot of times media doesn't ask questions of individuals that don't work on it as much. So, but thank you. I appreciate your question today, man. Stephen. And I did answer the question.
My name is Karen Glass, I'm a resident of Port St. Lucie. You showed before, 2017 tax cuts, and you talked about tariffs. Trump's 2025 tax plan is to give larger breaks to the billionaires.
Where do you see that?
It's been published.
It's not. There's none of the provisions are out there for the tax cut.
I didn't interrupt you. Can you please let me speak?
100%, but that's not out there. Just so you know.
It is. It's all part of this plan, and I saw the percentages and everything to even tax more single mothers and lower income people. In addition to that, you said the tariffs hopefully will help to create more jobs, get more businesses into the United States. Help me understand how these tariffs are going to help small business owners and help people start up businesses, and how these tariffs are going to make more jobs, because it's making it harder for people.
It certainly depends on the industry that somebody would be in and where they're trying to sell those products, but hopefully they're making those products in the United States of America, putting people to work. The United States of America is the largest consumer economy anywhere across the globe, which is why all these countries want to do business inside of the United States of America, because of everything that we consume. But small businesses, very specifically, they are helped with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, very specifically. I brought up the point already, and this is an important point because this will come to a vote in this budget reconciliation that we've been talking about. Do we or do we not make permanent the tax cuts from 2017? And if individuals come in and do not vote because these expire, if they do not vote to make permanent the tax cuts of 2017, then what existed in 2016 and all the years before that goes back into play. That means, using an example of somebody that is a small business like you're talking about, makes $100,000 and 20% of that 100 is totally tax-free, that means it reverts back to that is not the case anymore. All of those places where there are lower tax rates, where in 2016 and 15 and before, somebody making, let's say $20,000 or let's say $30,000 or $40,000 would have been taxed at 15%, whereas now they're taxed at 12%, that goes back to 15%. Or somebody making, let's say $80,000 that was taxed at 25% previously, and now they're taxed at 22%, that goes back to 25%. So if people don't vote to make permanent those tax cuts from 2017, you would see the largest tax hike on Americans in history. So, thank you. That's helpful to small businesses to not have those tax hikes. I appreciate your question. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Where are we going? Back there. Very good.
First of all, I want to tell you thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think I will talk about illegal immigration. Why? Because I'm an immigrant, I'm not a resident citizen, and I'm proud to be an American. To be an American. Okay, thank you. To be an American, I receive extraordinary ability alien card. I work for this very hard. I did my PhD. I was recognized worldwide. I bring 26 reforms from all over the world to recognize me as specialist to be accepted by American government. My husband is a rocket scientist. He came here, he worked for NASA. He did a great job, and we are proud to be American. But don't ask for pittance for people who came here illegally.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Sorry that there's standing room. I wish, by the way, just FYI, some people may have left temporarily to use the bathroom, or some people may have left permanently just because they didn't like it. There are a few seats. If you see seats open to you, maybe you can just help direct people that there can be a few seats, or Angel help direct
Angel,
people.
yeah, I was just going to say, Angel, do you mind bringing some of the people that are standing in the back and fill in? Go ahead, sir.
I'm off topic and I'm a little nervous too.
There's no off topic, no holds barred. So.
I'm a grandparent, and for the last 7 years, I haven't seen my grandchildren. Is Florida going to do something one day for grandparents' rights? I mean, it's terrible.
Sir, tell me a little bit more about grandparents' rights. I'm not going to. This is not an issue that I'm familiar with. Please educate me, and maybe there's something that I can do. Tell me about it.
They're talking to lawyers and judges and stuff like that. They don't really give any grandparents' rights at all, unless either the parents are dead or something in reference to that. Besides that, it's very hard. If a child doesn't want their parents to see the grandchildren, it's over. You can go take them to court, you can try to fight them. The only reason why they're going to let you see the children is because one of either the son or the daughter or whatever is dead. And that's when they really step up to do something about you.
Unless you're next of kin.
Yeah, basically. But besides that, they want to know. So,
do you have any ideas on what might be done with this?
I have lots of them. I've been trying to get to sit with you for about a month. I spoke to your secretary and tried to make an appointment with you. Also, Kathy Townsend has the same difficulty.
County Commissioner?
Yep. And she has her grandchild that she hasn't seen for 6 years. I haven't seen my grandson for 7 years. I only see my granddaughter one time since she's born. She's 7 years old and I never even seen her. We should really do something for grandparents, whether it's you go to a court and you're able to voice yourself at court and the judge actually see it and speak to you about it instead of them being closed-minded and saying, we don't do it in Florida. There's a lot of states that do have grandparents' rights, but Florida is not one of them.
Very good. Well, I would say this, number one, in DC right now, about 3 weeks out of every month. Happy to find time to meet with you. It would be quicker if we do it over Zoom. Just saying we can make that happen more quickly than if it's in person because there's a stack, just like being here today, but more than happy to make the time to do it. Whether it's Stephen or somebody else, they'll make sure to get your information. I appreciate you educating me on the issue. Look forward to
we will also connect him with our state representatives who oversee that issue.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and thank you for your.
Thank you for being here today.
Back to Jordan.
Hi,
There we go.
thank you for your services first.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wanted to go back to the 2017 tax cuts. And I saw how you put the percentages up there and everything, but you didn't put the dollar amounts. Okay, so if we put the dollar amounts up, do we have a dollar amount?
We have dollar amounts.
Let's
Yep.
put the dollar amounts up.
You may have to come up and squint a little bit to see it because it's a big chart, but if you have trouble seeing it, I'm happy to read something to you because I'm a little closer to it.
So when that was passed, every single economic person said that the best case scenario is that it brought in 10% of what they said. When they passed this, they said it's going to trickle down and then we're all going to, make more money, it's going to go in. It has brought the almost $2 trillion deficit. That's why all these people are here, because of all these cuts, because of the 2017 tax cuts. That's why all these people are sitting here, because they're upset with the cuts, and the cuts are because of that.
Is that the end of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple of things. Number one, any of us go out there and try to balance our budgets, we know that there are pain if our budget is not in balance. I hope that's something that we can all agree on. It's not easy to do, it's painful to do. We are spending year over year $2 trillion that we don't have. That's because we spend too much. It's not because we don't take enough from all of you. It's because we spend too much. And I could give you, maybe in a few minutes, I'll put up a different slide. Again, I deal with foreign affairs, and I'll put up examples of very specific foreign affairs things that I've worked to root out to show you these are real examples of waste. Whether you want to believe them or not, we can give you the documentation and the proof for every single one of them. But real waste and abuse that goes on there, that has to come to an end. As you're talking about tax cuts, the tax receipts and the economy after the end of the first Trump term, S&P 500 was up about 60% compared to the beginning of it, as one example, and the tax receipts were actually significantly greater than what the Congressional Budget Office estimated that they would be, and this is juxtaposed to something very important, and this brings in the conversation, y'all heard the conversation of 80,000 IRS workers, that kind of thing, you know what I'm talking about when I say that. So there was a bill under the previous administration, Reduction Act. It did not reduce inflation. It made inflation go through the roof. But the specific way, as a part of that bill, legislatively, that they planned to pay for everything that they were spending was to say, hey, we know we're going to spend all of this money, so what we need to do is find a way to pay for it. Okay, we're going to hire 80,000 more IRS workers to get more and more tax collectors to get money from you all. That's literally what the pay for was in the bill. That's why 80,000 more IRS workers were in a bill. It was to get more money out of you. And again, the point is, it's not that we don't take enough from you all, it's that this country spends too much. I'm going to take 30 seconds here, 30 seconds, give you that slide on just, waste that I've rooted out in the State Department. You can boo and think that these are not real things, but these are literal, real things that we rooted out of the State Department. Let's see, we got Sesame Street pilot program, $4 million in Bangladesh. There was a $20 million Sesame Street program in Iraq. There was $850,000 or something like that for a transgender job fair in Bangladesh. Absolute waste of your money. $15 million in condoms to the Taliban. The list goes on and on. You can read these things for yourself. These are real things, just giving you concrete examples of waste and abuse in our government, just in the State Department. These things come to an end. We spend too much. We spend too much on things that should not take place. No room in the world at all for these things, and these things go away from me. I thank you for your question.
How you doing, Congressman? My name is Sean Brother. I'm a resident here.
Sean, welcome.
So I used to run a factory here in Port St. Lucie. We had 300 employees, 65 of them reported to me. The reason manufacturing doesn't work in North America is because the people working for me, there's one guy living in the woods showering at a truck stop. The person that runs the company was driving a $250,000 car. One guy is showering in truck stops, and the owner is driving around in a Rolls Royce. That's why manufacturing doesn't work in North America. That's my question. So, who makes the rule of law? The judges, right? Judicial system? Very straightforward.
Lawmakers.
So if the Supreme Court tells the executive branch to return people to North America, and the executive branch refuses, is that not breaking the law?
It's not breaking the law because they didn't say when it has to be returned. That's just the truth of the matter.
So, courts have ruled against this multiple times in the last life, right? They told them to bring the other 200 people
Send
back.
down to a local court.
Right? Yeah. Either way, those are courts. Those are courts.
Send down to a local court. Right. Update.
It's the law, regardless of what court it's in. And they're telling them to bring people back. And since when is it okay for our government to ignore that? We came in here, we pledged allegiance, right? And you just told us that it is not okay for these immigrants to break the law.
That's right.
But you're also telling me that it's okay for the president to do it?
Also, they didn't tell him that he has to bring that individual that some people spoke about before back to the United States of America. It didn't have to be back to the United States of America. It did not have to be back to the U.S. It could be to another country as well. So FYI, that's something that's being sorted out as well, is where to return that individual to. Not going to be the United States of America, but somewhere else. So that is something that's being sorted out as you speak. So, because that's the law.
The 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 14th.
The 1st, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 14th Amendments have all been crushed with that one act.
Thank you. Sir, thank you for coming today. Appreciate you coming and bringing the time, bringing your comments. Thank you.
Congressman, thank you for being here today. Appreciate your service and your sacrifice. I have a comment and then I have a question.
Fire away.
For whatever it's worth, before you leave, okay, if you drive down the street about not even 2 blocks, there's a Social Security Administration office there. I went in there in, I believe it was December or January, and it's a fully functional office where you can normally go in and transact your business. Now they have, or when last time I went there, they had a sign out front that said they're only doing it by appointment only. And when you call at 3 in the afternoon, which is when I went there, the answering machine hangs up on you. Okay? You might want to take a look at that and put that in the back of mind.
100%.
The other question I have, and this is a question I'm specifically asking your vote on this. My driver's license is good in all 50 states. Now, driving is a privilege. Okay? My Second Amendment, okay, rights, okay, are guaranteed me by the Constitution. Okay? What is going to happen with the bill that's in Congress right now regarding concealed carry reciprocity? And are you going to vote for it?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So number one, happy to go down there and take a look at the Social Security Administration. Would reiterate what I said to you all, by the way, at the onset of this. You need help getting in contact with any agency you don't like that you had to wait 5 minutes, let us know and we'll help you through that. We'll set up, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you get through in the manner that you want to get through to. So don't forget to take us up on that. Concealed carry reciprocity bill has been around for a little while. I'm pretty sure I've co-sponsored it numerous times, want to see it go through. Come to the floor of the House, you will see my support for concealed carry reciprocity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen.
Hello.
I have 2 questions for you.
Very good.
Question 1, why are you wearing a suit?
Do you want to answer number 1?
No.
I'm still going to answer it.
So my real question, a few people spoke about it in regards to Kelmar Abrego Garcia. I know where you stand on that, you made that clear, but my real question for you is, what are you going to do when this administration starts sending American citizens there, which they did speak about yesterday, the homegrown criminals. The president did say that to the president of El Salvador. And my other question okay that these people are being sent to a prison for life. They said the only way you get out is in a body bag or a coffin. And Venezuela's prison population is at 162%. And if they keep putting people in, where are they going?
Very good question. I don't run that prison, but I can tell you, if people are here illegally, we're going to deport those individuals. It's going to continue to happen. Americans are not going to be deported because Americans are in their country, which is the United States of America. We're not going to have This is your place of birth. This is your place of holding a green card. This is your country. You will remain here. Why I'm not wearing a suit? Because I don't feel like wearing a suit. I'm happy to wear this.
So you think that the president is just joking about sending people there?
I think the president is not going to send any American to any other country. And in fact, I will tell you this, the president has been instrumental in bringing Americans back from other countries. The Biden administration let people languish in other countries. Americans languish in other countries. And thank God the president has worked to bring them back. So,
CJ with the Spark Free Press.
Over here.
Conservative.
I didn't hear the beginning of it. You don't mind?
CJ with the Spark Free Press, a lot of conservative. I just had a question about the immigration. We saw Jacksonville was making some good legislation and being able to identify illegals for coming in their city and making that a crime. Are we going to be able to see other sort of more aggressive measures to kind of combat these violent illegal gangs and things that are here locally? We need more of that.
States' rights, right? So we have some commissioners up front here, by the way. You guys want to stand up and say hello? So, anybody want to stand up? Say hello. James Clancy and Lowry, appreciate y'all coming out today. Local jurisdiction, states' rights, what a city, what a county, what a municipality decides that they want to do. Federal government, that's not our piece of that. That's the local municipality's decision to go out there and make those laws. As it relates to deportation, violating our border, that absolutely is federal. So again, you're going to see a continuation of what is taking place right now. Individuals that are here illegally being deported. I'm going to bring this back just to policy for a moment and talk about something related to this. It wasn't a question, but I think it's important to bring up. FEMA, we're Floridians. FEMA is something that matters to us. You're going to see a lot of changes in FEMA because of where there have been problems in FEMA. But one of the big problems relates to illegal immigration in that FEMA, instead of using dollars meant for Floridians that have a hurricane or tornadoes in St. Lucie County or something else going on, very literally about $1.5 billion of that money used to house illegal immigrants in New York City. Other dollars used south of the Mexico border to support illegal immigration. Those are things that come to an end. Dollars that are meant for American citizens go to American citizens. Man, you've been chomping at the bit.
I thank you for your sacrifice, sincerely. And it's hard for me to understand after doing what you did for our country, why you're letting Doge destroy it. Here. In terms of Social Security, guess what? I believe you. You're not going to cut Social Security because Doge is destroying it. It's not going to work. They're closing offices, like the sir said. I don't want to have to call you if I have a problem. I want to be able to go to Social Security and talk to them. Why do you have to go to me? That's another question. In terms of how to fix Social Security, it's so easy. You know that cap? Around 170, when you get there, you don't pay anymore. Have Musk pay Social Security for a second. He's going to pay Social Security. You know what I'm talking about that now. So there's so many other things. My gosh, immigrants. You know what happened to me yesterday? I'm an immigrant. My children were born here. Yesterday, my child went to get a pizza. He's 33 years old. He parked the car in the pizza place in Fort Lauderdale. Somebody parked next to him. And he came out of the car and started screaming at my kid. Okay, he's Hispanic.
by the way. And he told that kid, you're too close to my car, and that's why we want to deport all of you. You're persecuting Hispanics, just like Germany persecuted Jews. Destroying things. They're willy-nilly just fighting people. And then they go, oh, wait. We need you back. These people need to come. They're not organized. They're just destroying. You know why? Because they want to take over. They're going to privatize Social Security when it's not working anymore and we're all happy. They're going to come back. The billionaires are going to come back and say, we're going to take over. You pay me and I'll administer the Social Security. They're going to get money to organize.
Thank you for your comments, man. I would say a lot of that is how rumors get started that just simply aren't true because they're not going to do that. You're making something up, saying something is going to happen that is not going to happen. You're literally saying this is going to, it's not going to happen. And we've gone through Social Security already. There's not going to be cuts to Social Security. The more people that work, the safer Social Security is. And again, there will not be cuts to Social Security, but I appreciate your question. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, hello, I have a question.
Not sure where I'm looking yet.
Back of the room, Congressman, to your right.
First of all, my name is
Oh,
Mary.
I can see now. There you go.
Thank you for your service. And my question is, when is Congress going to stop letting Trump run roughshod over them? He's doing whatever he wants, and they're not standing up to him. He's becoming a dictator. And frankly, I'm afraid if my picture is here on something, that somebody will come to my house tonight and arrest me because I'm against Trump and I don't like what he's doing. So when is Congress going to stand up to him? Because obviously, the Supreme Court won't.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. I agree with the things that President Trump is doing. I agree with the cuts that are taking place. I agree with the leading out of ways to fraud the abuse. I agree with that wholeheartedly. President Trump is anything but a dictator. When you give freedom back to people, that's the opposite of what a dictator does. When you say you keep more of your money, that it would be the opposite of what a dictator does. When you try to protect your country from other countries, these are all things worth fighting for, and I support every single one of them. I'm very proud of you. By the way, the guy behind you putting up his middle finger, you can be more creative than that, can't you? Come on, you can be more creative than that, sir. You don't have the microphone, but I'm happy to hear from whoever does.
Mr. Mast,
sir.
I'm Marshall. I'm living Fort Pearson.
We've seen each other before. Nice.
We have. I want to thank you for your service. For almost 100 years, the United States has stood as a symbol of free enterprise and a country that has stood up for the rights of citizens and people all over the world. In particular, I'm disturbed over our posture, our current posture towards Russia. And the first question is, do you think that Russia is a friend of the United States?
No.
And what is your position on Russia attempting to take over Ukraine by force?
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. It's a great conversation to have, and obviously very much in my wheelhouse as foreign affairs chairman. So, number one, Russia is an enemy of the United States of America, no friend to the United States of America. Could talk about long histories about that. Number two, what's going on with that, and really some absolutely really positive things that have taken place in that. And let's be very specific about this. And President Trump gets all of the credit for these things that I'm going to list off. And let's be very specific why. So up to this point, even in the moment as we speak, Europe, EU, is still giving more dollars to Russia in terms of the oil and gas that they are buying from Russia than what they are giving to Ukraine in terms of support to fight Ukraine in this war. That's an important thing. President Trump talked in the first administration about why do we have NATO that we're paying all this money into to protect Europe from Soviet expansion, not Russian expansion, if you're just going to be in bed with Russia and get all of your energy and oil from gas from them and other things. It doesn't make any sense. And he brought it up as a problem. So you see Europe still putting more money into Russia right now than what they're taking out. Now, for the last 3 years of this war, Europe could have stepped up in a number of different ways. And in some places they are. Many of these European countries, like Poland as an example, right on the border, has brought their percentage of defense in terms of GDP up to 4%. That's 2% above that NATO requirement. There are still countries, a number of countries, under that 2%. When the war kicked off, most of the countries were under that 2% commitment that countries had made to support NATO in terms of defense. Those numbers have been coming up. But what's taking place that I say President Trump gets total credit for? Because of the attitude that he's taken with European countries saying, listen, we're not going to pay for this entire war. It's your backyard. You pay for the war going on in your backyard. You now have the United Kingdom saying they are going to spend an additional $2 billion every single year, $2 billion a year more in terms of defense spending. You have EU as a whole, which when EU wants to do something, every EU nation has to vote unanimously in order for that to take place, so it's not an easy threshold to get over. EU saying they're going to put another $150 billion into an EU defense fund specifically to combat Russia, and they're looking at putting peacekeepers as a part of that as well, soldiers, or if you want to call them peacekeepers, soldiers, to go into Ukraine. That's what EU is looking at doing. Germany committing to somewhere between 400 and 500 billion, I don't have the exact number in front of me, 400 to 500 billion dollars in defense funds specifically to combat what's going on in Russia. And the point that I'm making is all of these countries, they could have done it last year, the year before, 3 years ago. They didn't do it because they were happy to let the United States of America pay for this. And now we have Europe finally stepping up and doing what they need to do, which is protect their own backyard. And I'm very happy to see that happening. The United States of America still supports in these ways. So number one, United States still provides intelligence to Ukraine. There's still what's known as drawdown authority, where they take old weapons from us or other countries. That takes place. There are, very specifically, if another country wants to sell a weapons system that they bought from the United States of America to Ukraine for that war, we have to sign off on those. I have to literally sign off on those things. Those things get signed off on, so I see all of them that go through. So there's still a number of supports that are going on there, but you now have a Europe that is stepping up in a way that they could have, that they chose not to do. So that's a little bit on Ukraine. I appreciate the question.
Thank you. Second question. I have long admired on our environment and your protection of the waterways. Among very few of your comrades or associates, you have stood up against big sugar and those issues. My question is a broader issue. Do you think it's good policy for our country to concentrate on oil and gas and precious resources that we need for the future and to turn away from renewable energy sources?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So, all above energy approach is what the president is for. What I am for as well. It could be oil and gas. It could be wind and solar. It could be it could be nuclear power plants like we have here in St. Lucie. It could be a number of different things. Some of these will come to a debate in the future in this budget reconciliation bill as it relates to what's known as renewable tax credits. That's something that will be a part of the debate and where they come forward. There's something else that I wanted to say on that. It was a good question. I appreciate it. Can you say your question again one more time?
Green energy.
Green energy, right. So all of the above energy approach, I'll just leave it at that. It's all of the above energy approach that you'll see going forward. This also has to do with every mineral that the United States of America needs. Why? Because we need to be able to supply our own energy so that we don't get into a situation like what Europe got into when they got into that Russia-Ukraine war. And Russia said, well, if we're going to have this war, we're going to start turning off the oil and gas on you European nations who are so in bed with us. Same thing goes for the way that we're in bed with China on a number of different things that we need for in terms of rare earth minerals and other metals that we need for everything from cell phones to automobiles to defense products. China controls basically basically every cobalt mine across the globe, very important for things. These are things that we are paying attention to now, saying, okay, country, Democratic Republic of Congo, over there in Africa, we've been supporting you through PEPFAR and all this money for HIV medication and these other things, but you allow China to own up all of these mines in your country. Something's got to change because we've been doing all this work for you, and we're not going to continue supporting for China. Those are the kinds of debates that are being had right now in order to protect the country. I know it's not exactly what you asked on energy, but it's another important thing to bring up. Thanks for asking. I'm sorry. One other quick thing. Because you were talking about environment. We didn't talk about it much, that's what I wanted to touch on. Number one, very proud of the work on the environment. It's been the two biggest bills that I would say I'm most proud of work that I've done. One, to create a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, to take water out of Lake Okeechobee instead of sending it into our coastal estuary here, to store it, clean it, and ultimately send it into the Everglades, very important for our state. And another one, to redo the management plan for Lake Okeechobee. It's this big book called the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, and to totally redo that, I wrote a law saying this has to be redone because of the way it was screwing our community, and that went through as well. So my two favorite pieces of legislation that I've ever worked on was passing those, but you're right. I don't take money from the sugar industry. It's a fun story for me to tell. Back in the day when I was a first-time candidate, sugar executives and lawyers for the sugar industry and other people that came in, and they gave me a bunch of contributions, and I looked at my treasurer for my campaign. I said, go into the campaign logs, find anybody that wrote down that they worked for the sugar industry, because people have to write down where they work when they make a contribution. And I said, return any contribution that came from anybody in the sugar industry, a lawyer, a worker, an executive, or whatever it is, return any contribution. And that was back in my first primary. I don't take any dollars from the sugar from the sugar companies anywhere across the country. And I would tell you this as well. I'm the only member of Florida that votes against sugar subsidies. Governor DeSantis used to be the second one, but now he's our governor, and he doesn't vote in the House of Representatives anymore. So we were the only two, Republicans or Democrats.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
My name is Natalie.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and for your service. What I'm hearing from most everybody is concerns over a rise of authoritarianism. One issue specifically regarding authoritarianism that I want to address is in regards to USAID, as an example. The administration has argued that agencies like USAID are not obligated to spend funds already appropriated by Congress as directed by the Constitution. How can Congress maintain the power of the purse when already appropriated funds can be withheld?
End of the question. So it's a good opportunity for, the old schoolhouse rock, this is how a bill becomes a law. There's a little bit more to that than just what the schoolhouse rock does in terms of how appropriations go. So take an agency like what you brought up, the United States Department of State, the State Department, its head Secretary of State Rubio right now, and USAID falling under the State Department. When you're dealing with that and it goes through Congress, Congress should, but Congress does not, have the opportunity to go out there and say every individual program. Just put up that slide of the waste, fraud, and abuse in USAID just so people have an idea of programs. I'm not going to go through them, but so you have an idea of what things are that USAID was doing, right? So if you take any one of those, Congress doesn't go in and vote and say, okay, we approve $849,000 for transgender job fair in Bangladesh. What happens is there is a request for budget of the State Department, because the State Department decides what they want to send up, and they say, okay, please give us a budget of $80 billion or whatever the money might be, and then the House of Representatives will say yes or no. Okay, we'll send you that $80 billion as your year of requested appropriations, and then when they get that, they go out and they decide to do programs specifically like this. These programs were not specifically written into law that the State Department has to spend, I don't know, take your pick of one, $22,000 to increase, or $22 million to increase tourism in Tunisia and Egypt on the bottom left. There wasn't a specific bill that said, you State Department have to spend that on that. So that's how the administration can go in and say, you know what, we're not going to spend on that. That's a waste of your dollars. Let's put that money back into the Treasury. Let's pay down the debt. Let's do something else that is not supporting Egyptian and Tunisian tourism. So, quick
follow-up. Because you have credible reasons, you can gut this department that was
established by Congress?
Say the question.
Because you have credible reasons as listed behind you, you have the authority to gut this department that was established by Congress.
It sounds like you're sort of done with that or not. Even if it was a program that I liked, they could go out there and say, we're not going to do this program anymore. We don't specifically put that program forward. And that goes the same way with other agencies. I gave the example earlier of FEMA as an example, right? FEMA is supposed to be used for emergency dollars for a tornado, a hurricane, a wildfire, or something else. They were using those dollars literally to house illegals in New York City. So there wasn't a bill in Congress that said, hey, let's take $1.5 billion and earmark that specifically for illegal immigrant housing in New York City. They chose to take those dollars and use it for that other thing, and then forced Congress to basically find that out. They didn't come outright and just forthright say it. It took digging and things like Doge to say that this is what actually happened. So, but there are receipts for it. So. Thank you for your question. Yeah. So, where are we going to next? Oh, very good. Sorry about that.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Dolores Hogan Johnson, former representative, District 84. I think all of this has happened for a reason. I'm a fasting and praying woman. And I pray for everyone here who's been elected, appointed to positions of authority. And I share with elected officials 2 Samuel 23rd chapter, verse 3. And these are some of the last words of King David when he said, the rock of Israel spake, he who ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And this is happening. We need to pay attention. Our tax dollars, how they're spent. But it can be, all of this can be done and decent and in order. And that's what we must do. We can't go on with this man, with this craziness. There are ways to do this and do it in decent and in order fashion. That's what we must do. I made several trips to Liberia and West Africa, and I've seen how monies are spent by organizations and our governments. I pray we need to understand we have got to stop putting money into these countries and programs, and you've shown some of it, and turning our backs. But we must educate the people of these countries that this is their country. We need to help them get stabilized. They have to know that monies that are given by these United States and other nations around the world are given to build safe and decent housing, strong infrastructure for clean water, sewer systems, and sewage, disposable stuff if necessary, bridges and roads, irrigation for crops and for animals. All of this can be done in a proper manner, but the people of these countries need to be educated to that. We cannot continue the way he's come in. President Trump has come in with some wild stuff. But we need to get, our attention needs to be gotten, but there's a way to do it. I noticed that you said with this one bill, one Democrat voted, but I know that there are amendments that can be attached to bills. And that can happen, and people will not vote for it. But let's be fair and honest. Remember, we are all going to be judged. Not by each other, but by God Almighty. Let us work together.
Thank you, man.
Democrats, Republicans, Democrats, work together for this nation.
it's a good opportunity to just make a point. I can't remember if I made this already because I've done a couple other town halls today and I might have said the same thing more than once. But again, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that if I go to Washington, D.C. on a Monday and I'm there until Friday, which is, most weeks, and come home on the weekend, I always look forward to being back home. The first Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are largely spent on bipartisan issues that maybe not everybody votes in agreement on, but let's say there's 435 members of Congress, 380, 390 people all vote to say this is something that we agree on, and much of the work is bipartisan. Most people don't know about that. It doesn't go to media fanfare. It doesn't make big headlines on the left or the right, but it is the case of pretty much every single week. And then when you get to Friday, you have the things that the news wants to pay attention to, which are those big things that people don't disagree on. But it's a very common thing that you see week in, week out in Washington, D.C. But I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Congressman,
very good, Derek.
My name is Debbie Benoit, and I'd like to take this in a totally different direction with two questions. Number one, how are we going to keep the national parks open, staffed, and clean? It's my understanding that they're one of the few divisions of government that's actually making money, and we're taking staff away. My second question is, what on earth can we do to stop President Trump from wasting millions and millions of our dollars golfing?
I think the president is going to continue to play golf when he wants to, just like other presidents have, and you can count on that being the case. To go specifically to other cuts that are taking place, say your cuts again that you were specifically concerned about, sometimes hard to hear up here. National parks, is that what you said? National parks. To give an idea of what DOJ is doing, again, they don't make the decision. The head over any agency actually goes in there and makes a decision. DOJ goes in there as essentially an auditing group to say, these are where we see places where you can make cuts. You have one person doing, or you have 6 people doing the job that 2 people could do. So there's an efficiency that can take place there. Those efficiencies are going to take place, and they need to take place. Just plain and simple, it's what's going to happen in any agency, whether it's the National Park Service or somewhere else. This is not a national park, but it's just going to touch on something that's a specific idea from me. The president does want to see, not necessarily national parks, but different places where there are federal lands. Not every federal land is a national park. A lot of this is Bureau of Land Management land, other things like that, be returned to the states so that the states can control those lands. One of those places that we have here that's not a BLM land, but what I would like to see go specifically to Martin County, because that's where it falls, is you have the Port Mayaca Lock and Dam, which is right on Lake Okeechobee, and you have the St. Lucie Lock and Dam, both operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They open those up, they destroy our waterway, and I would love to see those be 2 items that were not even delegated down to the state, delegated down to the actual county with which they sit. Just something that's kind of peripheral to what you're talking about here. Thank you for your comments about national parks. I love them. They're a national treasure. Want to see them continue. A lot of us went out to fight for Jonathan Dickinson State Park down in Hope Sound. These are places that we care about, and we want to see them continue to be clean, pristine, welcoming, places that we have that Europe and other places don't have. It's a monument to our country, and we'll continue to work to make sure that they're just as beautiful as they are today. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you very much for putting on these town halls. It's a fantastic way for everybody to get their voice out there. We saw millions of people from other countries break our immigration laws and come across our borders. We see thousands coming up at a time in the caravans. The most robust deportation plans can only take out a fraction of what we have seen come across. Is there anything that Congress can do or will do to assist in allowing these people who have come here to return back to their homeland?
Well, number one, anybody has the option to return back to their homeland. There's important things to talk about this. We've largely focused on the side of it for saying there are going to be deportations for people that are here illegally, whether it's because they're found through housing and urban development, or whether it's because they're already in the system because they're in the system and they logged in on an app program that people could log in during the Biden administration before they ever crossed the border and just skip the line. Whatever it is, individuals here legally are going to go back to their countries of origin. That's all I can say on that, but just to say something else on the issue that we haven't really talked about, there is another side to this issue. And a lot of times this conversation goes to, well, listen, if your tub is overflowing, the first thing that you do is turn it off. Yes, that's the first thing that you do is turn it off. But we're not a country that doesn't want people coming into our country, traveling into the nation. Once the president is satisfied that he's turned off illegal immigration, there's absolutely intent to go out there and say, what do we have to do with guest worker visas? All right, where has the guest worker visa program failed because community, or rather industry after industry that's requesting workers, they don't get the workers when they need, how they need them, in the places that they need them, and it's a broken system. So absolutely, there's another side to this as well, just to say that that will take place as well when the president is satisfied with turning off the water faucet so that it can stop overflowing, dealing with the laws that are in place to say this is how we do bring in people legally. So both things will take place. Not much more to say on necessarily what a state or local government's going to do on immigration. I just don't have anything further on it. But I appreciate the question. Thank you. Derek?
Yes. Hi, my name is Gail Magna. Thank you very much for your service.
Gail?
Yes, Gail. What I find troubling is that you have all of these answers to the questions that people are asking, but it seems basically you're justifying the positions that you've taken that generally follow along with the president. And I think by doing that, you're telling us you're not hearing us and you're not listening to us. We're saying that we're troubled, and you are just going why we shouldn't be troubled. Can you really say that you are always right and that maybe...
Definitely not always right. No.
Well, then maybe you have to listen to the people who've come here and not just tell us what you are told or what you know. Listen and say, okay, the people are unhappy with what's going on, with the democracy seeming to disappear, with rights going down, with the president taking over the three branches of government. That is what we are all trying to tell you.
And I appreciate your comments. I offer information simply so that you know exactly where I am at as your representative, the way that I'm going to represent on illegal immigration or deportation or FEMA or whatever it is that the subject might be, Social Security. It's my job to go out there and tell you this is the way that I would be representing that issue, but I enjoy hearing your opinions. They do not go in one ear and out the other. I enjoy hearing the thoughts from everybody, and I appreciate you bringing them. It doesn't just happen in town halls that we hear them, although we certainly hear them here. It happens in emails. It happens in social media comments. It happens in phone calls that we have. It happens when I'm walking through Publix that, I go out there and I have conversations in whatever aisle with people about whatever's most on their mind. And I'm always happy to have the conversation and hear what it is. That's a part of being a representative. It's an honor to do, and I'm always happy to hear it. We don't always agree. We won't always agree, but I guarantee there are places where we do agree. And in that, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your comments. So, what else? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Congressman. Mast. I'm originally from Costa Rica. I came legally, and I understand that you are my congressman because I became American citizen in the legal way. Could you please... are being persecuted because I do not feel like that. Could you please tell me one question? How we can stop this sense of anti-Semitism in the United States of America? Because as a Christian, I am concerned that this is going to be something that is not just going to go against Jewish people, but against Christians. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Listen. I can't pretend that I have a silver bullet for how to stop anti-Semitism. It's something that's existed for a long window of time, something that's close to my heart. But I can tell you that for my part, it's something that I won't stand for anti-Semitism. I hope it's something that we can all agree on. Racism's in any form. It's not something that's a part of who we want ourselves to be. And I appreciate your comment today. I'm sorry I don't have a silver bullet for how you stop anti-Semitism. I just simply don't. So.
Hello, Congressman, and I do appreciate you, and I do see what you're doing for our country and for the area here. And I thank her from the bottom of my heart. You know, I want to say something here. I'm just so saddened that we can't see the truth as people. It saddens my heart that we think it's okay for illegal immigration. It saddens my heart that we think what's on that board of what Doge took from us, that it's okay. It saddens me that we think, I've had people tell me Trump is a Nazi. And it saddens me that we don't see with our eyes the truth. And you know, I want to just say this. I believe that television has a big influence on us. I believe that we are one. I grew up where Democrats and Republicans got along and we love each other. And we are all want the same thing here. We really do. But you know, I'm telling you right now, our country was on the blink of either being communism or being socialistic if we did not have what we had come into this country. And I know a lot of you, I'm an unpopular voice here. I know that. I know it. But I am asking you to go to your Lord and ask Him to show you in your heart what's going on in this country. Thank you, President Trump, and thank you, Mast.
Sir?
Thank you, Congressman. My name is Dr. Richard Corbin. I'm a retired physician. I'm very seriously concerned about healthcare and scientific research in the United States. I have a son who died at age 24 as a result of type 1 diabetes.
You say you had a son, there's a little bit of
I have a son who died at age 24 as a result of type 1 diabetes.
Sorry for that one.
Recently, there have been multiple scientific programs, especially diabetic research programs, that have been terminated by the administration. There was a program on adolescent diabetes at the University of Michigan, a long-term study of diabetes at Columbia University, multiple other diabetes studies have been terminated by the administration. If your children had diabetes, how would you feel looking upon what was going on with these diabetes research programs?
Thank you for your question. I might not like it. That's the truth. If that was the case of my family. To say another side of this, I understand where you're coming from. I don't literally understand because it's not the case for my children, but I do hear what you're saying in this. The other side of this, and you bring up a point, there were a research program here and a research program here and a research program here and a research program here, and there might be many more. I don't know specifically on diabetes which ones were reviewed, which ones were canceled, and which ones were said, this is one that's going to continue. This is quite often the case with where you see these cuts going on. Again, I deal specifically with State Department, being on foreign affairs. All of the programs were paused. Some of the programs were saying, okay, we're taking the pause off of this, and they were continuing. Same thing with grants going through the National Institute of Health. All of the grants were paused. Many of the programs still under review or have been reviewed and say that one's going to come to an end or that one's going to continue. Maybe it's too duplicative is something that they decided in the National Institute of Health or somewhere else, but that's a lot of what's going on with that very specifically. And the one other thing that I would say is this: there are cuts that I wouldn't want to see. There are things that I wouldn't want to see cut. And I think there are things that all of us can say and look to a way it might touch something personal and say, hey, I don't want that cut, or I wouldn't want that cut. The alternative is very simply this, to put it bluntly. Next year we borrow another $2 trillion. And the year after we borrow another $2 trillion. And the year after we borrow another $2 trillion. And we can't do any medical research because the United States of America is bankrupt. And the goal, very specifically, is to balance the budget of the United States of America. $4 billion a day in cuts cuts over 365 days, equaling roughly $1.5 trillion, basically getting us pretty daggone close to a balanced budget. That is the goal for this year. Get the United States of America to a balanced budget, less inflation, right? Balanced budget, we start paying off our interest on the debt and our debt, and we have a more sustainable country to go out there and do things in the future that are important for our country. But if we're bankrupt, we can't do those things. I really appreciate you bringing up diabetes.
The other problem that I would like to mention is that the scientific research programs really should be looked at in how cost-effective they are. In other words, we're putting money into it, and what's the benefit that we're getting out of it?
Definitely.
I don't see any evidence being looked at that way. I see the outbreak of measles in Texas and Oklahoma in that area. I also see that all of the free clinics for MMR vaccines have been closed in the area where there's an outbreak of measles. Yeah, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Happy to look into that. Not familiar with the Texas issue that you're speaking of specifically, but I'm more than happy to look into that. Happy to do so. Thank you. So, where are we going?
Hello, Congressman. First, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to my first town hall. And
thank you for being here.
My question was regarding Israel. I was curious if you recognize what is happening in Gaza as a genocide or not.
I recognize that the people of Gaza committed a genocide against Israel on October 7th. I don't know that you've seen the video or not of them beheading people with garden hose, shooting entire families, taking people hostage. If they could have taken 2,000 hostage and killed 100,000, that's what October 7th would have been. Absolutely a genocide to kill every individual that they could find for the purpose of, for the cause of being Jewish. So.
Right here, Congressman.
Right here.
I'm Diane Goldberg. I am the conservation chair for 2 organizations. And what I would like to have you do, I'm asking that you write and pass a bill to stop the land application of biosolids, which in many cases are called fertilizers when they're class A and AA. But unfortunately, they contain medical waste as well as PFAS and PFOS. And it is not only getting into our drinking water and waterways, but into our food supply. Tests have shown that where crops were grown, where this was put down, they are finding these items in our food, as well as when cows, the grass that they eat is grown in with biosolids. Also have this, medical waste in them, and we're eating this. It is a problem also that it is in nutrients, and this is one of the things that is causing the cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae, which has killed thousands of manatees. But that seagrass that has been lost also is a spawning area for our fish. So there goes some of our food supply, but also a problem with our economy, because then of course the tourism as well as the fishermen also. So if you could please try and do this. Now what are we going to do with this biosolids? What we need to do is ask you to fund putting in biosolids energy plants where you make energy using the biosolids that would run the plant. So it unfortunately is very expensive to buy the equipment and put it in, but it's certainly much safer for all of our health and for our health of the environment. And since you are on the Committee for Infrastructure, I hope that you can help with this.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the ideas. You're speaking to my heart on a lot of that. I always say, as it relates to our water, I just call it the bathtub test. Bathtub with my kids, I don't want it in our waterways, and that includes our coastal estuaries. I did have a bill previously known as the Forage Fish Act that goes specifically to that lower level of the ecosystem that you're talking about.
Destroyed, when the seagrass gets destroyed, the fish that come up in that seagrass area don't come up, which affects the next level of the ecosystem. Obviously, the seagrass affecting our manatee. One of the other big places that we can talk about what's going in our water, not just the nutrients, the phosphorus and the nitrogen that come out of these fertilizers, a lot of it up north along the Kissimmee, flowing into Lake Okeechobee, and then from Lake Okeechobee coming out into our coastal estuaries and coastal waters. But one of the other big things is that you see the management of invasive species using things like aquathol, endothol, glyphosate, essentially Roundup, right? Being sprayed into the water. And again, it just goes to the point that if we wouldn't put it in the bathtub with our kids, I don't think any of us want to see that go into our water. I've written bills to say, because some of this goes through the state, some of this goes through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at the federal level. That's the federal nexus to it, to say, listen, no dollars shall be used on the federal level to support these programs. I can't pretend to you that I'm not largely by myself on these bills on either side of the aisle, but I continue to go out there and write them because I think they're important to our community and preserving our waterways and preserving our health.
But I appreciate the ideas that you're bringing on biosolids very specifically, so thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome to your first town hall.
Can you move the microphone a little closer? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, or you can just yell it if you want. You can yell it.
I have a question specifically about your stock trading.
Yeah, fire away.
Specifically, would you happen to support H.R. 396, which would ban members of Congress from holding or trading individual stocks? And actually, I'd like possibly your comment. In 2021, we had the second best stock record in Congress, Nancy Pelosi. We all know you made a 563% profit on a marijuana company, what, days before you voted yes to legalize medical marijuana. I was wondering if you would potentially want to prevent any insider trading. And secondly, you also sat on the subcommittee of aviation while holding stock in multiple different aviation companies, which some would say might create a conflict of interest. So would you stop insider trading companies?
It's a good question. So number one, never participated in any insider trading, never been a part on any front of any ethics investigation in any way, shape, or form. I have owned cannabis stocks before. I've never been a user of any cannabis. I do think that, well, there has not been a vote, and when you were talking about on legalizing marijuana, there should be votes on these things. I think it falls to the pinnacle of a states' rights issue, and it's a big problem that Congress is not voting on various cannabis policies. It's a big problem that those policies are not moving on either side of the aisle. There's another example of a bill that I think should move. It's not. It's the Safe Banking Act. If you don't know, your dispensaries across the community, growers, things like that, they can't participate with Bank of America or Wells Fargo or JP Morgan Chase or whatever. They have to do an all-cash business. So I do think there are things that should go on there. I am upset about the statistic that you gave there. If I'm going to do something, I want to be number one always. So I'm upset that I came in number two. But I would think it's important to mention I am not a millionaire. I am a thousandaire. So any stocks that I've held, they were not to high levels of owning stock. Just FYI, whether that matters to you or not, I'm a thousandaire. And the other thing that I would tell you on that, absolutely, I would support members of Congress or the members of House of Representatives and the Senate not being able to trade stocks or own stocks or other things or have to put it in a blind trust. I think I've been on a few different bills for that. And I want to say that I probably haven't owned a stock as a member of Congress for, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years probably. It's been quite a while since I've owned one. My kids own a couple, like 2 shares of this, 5 shares of this, that kind of thing, but we're not talking about anything substantial, but would be, certainly something that I would support. I can see many places where people could think that is a conflict of interest, and I want to see confidence in Congress. I want to see confidence in government, and if that's something that erodes confidence in government, then I'm happy to say, yeah, that should exist. Thank you for your
Congressman, as we wind down, we're going to take 5 more questions. We're going to start here. I have the 5. Sir, state your name.
Hi.
I got the microphone.
Thank you for your service.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Coletto, and thank you for your service, sir. I don't have a question, I have a request.
Fire away.
I'm trying to get this message out to you, President Trump's campaign and all that. With this big, beautiful bill that's going out, and I'm happy that you're a big supporter of tax cuts and all that. My idea is we got to take care of the mothers and fathers first. I would like to request of you to put in that big, fat, beautiful bill, along with all other tax cuts, that mothers, Gold Star mothers and fathers should have tax-free for life.
Very good. Thank you for the idea. It's a good idea.
It's not benefiting me, but I do a lot of benefits with Gold Star mothers and fathers, especially Gold Star mothers. And it would be a big thank you for them.
Very good. I thank you for the idea. There's one idea that I put forward specifically. It's peripheral to this. It's not the same thing. I thank you for that idea. It was to say no tax on military bonuses, right? That's related to our military, not the Gold Star families. But any ideas like this, please bring them forward. Thank you. I'm happy to pass it on. Please bring it forward. I don't sit on the Ways and Means Committee that deals specifically with tax and that bill, but it's something that I'll bring to the members of the Ways and Means Committee. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for being here for a town hall.
Glad to be here.
I have contacted your office in the past related to a very personal matter. I have a bullet in my hand, and I know you know what it's like to be on the other side of a lethal weapon. I'm 100% for the Second Amendment, but I don't know how many people in here have a backyard target range. You're about community safety. Your platform is community safety. I know that's what I've been watching on your videos. And I am in fear of going in my backyard. I've moved to 2 different locations, and I've had backyard target shooters within range to the point where I have bullets in my driveway. And I know what it's like. I don't have a lot in common with President Trump, but I had a bullet whizzing by my ear, and I happened to be with my 7-month-old great niece and her 1.5-year-old sister, and their parents are active captain in the Navy, and my niece, their parent, was a munitions specialist in the Air Force, and we were all ducking and covered and running, and we are just west of Indian River Drive. So do you have a backyard target range? You know there's a Florida statute that says you can have one under certain requirements, but there is nothing in that statute that says you do not have to know where that bullet went.
So you're somewhere like over by Green River Parkway or on the other side of the Savannas somewhere?
I am on the west side of the railroad tracks along the Savannah Preserve State Park. And the representatives that I have talked to all agree that this should never have happened, that people who have guns have common sense. They do not, because I have a body cam video showing the police officers interview the person after a 4-hour helicopter ride, find the people with the target range, saying that yes, we know people live there. So this bullet went west of Indian River Drive, west across FEC. My daughter was traveling on the Bright Line that day, and they won't even take a report.
Absolutely unacceptable to have your family put in danger by crossfire like that taking place, 100%. And I'm going to ask staff about what's going on with that very specifically. Thank you.
I know you have. Okay, I know you have stepped up for Jonathan State Park issues. I know this is a state statute, but nobody is taking the lead in helping keeping our families safe in our own backyard.
Happy to educate myself on it. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Appreciate it, ma'am. Ma'am?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
In the military, and thank you for serving our country now.
Thank you, ma'am.
I completely support you and President Trump.
Thank you, ma'am.
A lot of news, so I try not to make judgments. But I have a question. We hear a lot of discerning statements about the illegals. What about the January 6ers? I want to know about them. I know that President Trump pardoned most of them. Okay, all of them. Like I said, I don't watch the news because most of the news media are liars. But have they gone home? Are they still
To my knowledge, once somebody is pardoned, they are pardoned and they're square with the system in that way. I can't say I've been alerted to somebody that remains in a lockup or hasn't gone home. Doesn't mean that I know everything, but I can't say that it has been brought to my attention in any way. One of the caucuses that I chair in Congress is what's known as the Justice for Warriors caucus. That specifically relates to members of the military, and so it's through the Justice for Warrior caucus that we were educated on a number of individuals being former members of the military that needed assistance in different ways with due process. So, but I can't say that since that time anybody has alerted me to anything going on in that way. So I appreciate the question. If I hear of anything, we'll take your information and certainly happy to get back to you with an answer. So, thank you, ma'am.
One's dead because he was resisted arrest.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Nikki Owens is my name. I'm a local educator, an actual teacher. Been teaching for 30 years.
Thank you for your work. What school?
I believe in public education.
What school?
St. Lucie Redwood Academy.
Very good.
And to that, I would like to say to you that I teach history. That the history is factual, period. What I need everyone to understand, including you, sir, is that because it's factual, we really don't have to make up anything. We just say, this is what happened. You know, read it or look at the primary documents. You can see it. My students right now really are very concerned. They are diverse. They come from many backgrounds. And they were worried if people were going to come into the school and take them away. And I told them, no, I won't. They're not coming. Now, I told them that because I knew I'm also active with the union, the teachers union. And I need to say this. I stand up for the underdog, no matter who it is. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to stand up for us, the underdog. Because we matter. We matter.
Absolutely.
And it's important, but we have to know it. I know we have to know it.
When I have a dialogue with him, you're talking with a Congressman.
It's not enough for one person, it's for all of us. So I will just leave you with this. As a teacher of the year, I've got an office award, and I have come into education because of my family. They were educators as well. I was an attorney too. But the reality is this. Please stand up for us. Please let the president know when he's wrong.
Very good.
Tell
Yes,
him.
ma'am.
Don't be afraid of him. We will back you.
Yes, ma'am.
But you tell them we are here and we matter.
Yes, ma'am. I can tell you, you matter to me. I congratulate you on when you were Teacher of the Year, when exactly that was. Congratulations. Thank you for educating our kids. Let's get to policy just for a moment on this. You didn't ask it, but a lot of people have been curious before about Department of Education, so I want to touch a little bit on Department of Education, if you don't mind, even though you didn't ask it. So Department of Education, people say, okay, there are cuts going on there. It's not going to look the same. There's a number of places that it won't look the same. That is a fact, but let's talk about the dollars that go through the Department of Education and what actually happens to that. You said you're a member of the Teachers Union. I'll give you a quote from Randy Weingarten, the head of the Teachers Union nationally, and she said basically $1 in $7 that goes into education comes from the federal side of it, right? So $1 in $7 comes from the federal, goes to the state if there's any $7 that are spent there. So ending the Department of Education doesn't mean that the dollars that go into education cease to exist. It means that they come under a different command and control in a number of different places to be more accountable. So to give some of these examples, if we were talking about Title I dollars as an example that come from the federal side, instead of going from from your pocket to DC to the Treasury to the Department of Education to the state of Florida and then down on the line from there, it will go from the Treasury to the state of Florida and down on the line into $1 in $7 coming into education in the state of Florida. If we were talking about insurance for students or something like that, you would see that insurance go directly through Health and Human Services services. If we're, instead of going through the Department of Education, if you were talking about something like Pell Grants or something like that, student loans, you would see that go directly through an agency that's used to doing loans like that, which would be like the Small Business Administration. So again, just because, and this goes for a number of different agencies, just because you don't see an agency look the same way that the agency has looked in the past, it doesn't mean that some programs or all programs or none of the programs don't continue on in that agency. It depends on how they have been evaluated, what those programs are doing good, how they've been a good, accountable stewards of your dollars, and if, again, you can justify that that's a dollar that should be borrowed or taken out of your pocket to go out there and fund that program. And that's, basically a level of a threshold that it needs to meet. But there's a little bit on education, and I appreciate, again, your comments today. Thank you, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So, RFK Jr.
My name is Jennifer. I'm a resident here in Port St. Lucie. There's probably a lot of things that I could discuss on. Obviously, I work for a better organization, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, PDA. I also work in the research department, so I'm very concerned about a lot of the grant funding and cuts and things as it relates to research. Because obviously with PDA, Paralyzed Veterans of America, we do work with obviously spinal cord injury, ALS, and MS, so that is a concern for me. However, one of the biggest concerns, one of the gentlemen brought up about the concealed carry mandate, and the lady that was just speaking about bullets in her backyard. HR 38 and S65. Obviously, some people may not know what that is. And so when we talk about gun bills and gun laws, I'm also a Moms to Men Action volunteer. I actually lead the state of Florida. But the mandate basically will allow Congress to vote, which will allow states to allow other states. People can come into our states and concealed carry weapons in public. That increased the risk. It's not to take away Second Amendment right. I'm a gun owner as well. And I do advocate for gun safety, gun laws, and things like that because I want to be safe, even as a person who has a weapon. And so I'm still unclear as to why when we talk about the safety of people, and we know what gun violence entails when we talk about mass shootings that happen every day, when we talk about homicides, we have over 125 homicides in this country a day, in one day. So, when we talk about statistics, it's not in our favor to continue to allow more guns in public spaces with anybody that just, randomly is here in the state. That's a safety concern. And so for you to state that you want to be in favor of that, I have a concern because now you can't be about our safety when you will allow something that will put more people in jeopardy, not just our communities, but our law enforcement. And so we have to think about this as a whole. Yeah, we have to think about this as a whole. So I want to know why you're actually in agreement with something that does not keep us safe, but also what safety measures would actually be included in that bill. If you do feel like this is something that should be passed, what safety measures are there?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. So number one, it's important to note when you're talking about concealed carry and concealed carry reciprocity, which I agree with. Any individual that goes out there and gets a conceal and carry permit actually rise to a higher level of training than most of, I'm not going to say, this is not to beg the training of individuals out there or individuals in the military, but simply go through something that is required, not of other people, to go out there and say, purchase a firearm, right? There are requirements to go out there and get a concealed carry permit. So you're asking very specifically what goes in place with somebody and somebody carrying across different state lines. Well, they went through a different training or a level of training versus no level of training just by virtue of getting a concealed carry permit. That is the nature of getting a concealed carry permit, or that can be waived if you have been a member of the military as well. Those are things that are waived as well, having been a member of the military. I do, again, support concealed carry reciprocity. I believe in not outsourcing my protection as best I can and being able to, carry wherever it is that I want to carry. And me carrying is not a danger to anybody other than that would be an assailant, of which I can be a very violent person, and I would tell them hesitate from coming at me.
Congressman Mast, thank you for your service.
and both in the military as well as in Congress, and you have my full support, as does President Trump. One of the reasons I will tell you I really support what Trump is doing, and a lot of people see him as an authoritarian and as a Nazi, and I would venture to say most of those people have never spent much of their time overseas and living in other countries. I spent 20-some years of my life, my father was 23 years with the military and 8 to 10 years in other government service. So I lived overseas in very small countries such as Laos and in Thailand, and if you think this country is bad, I invite all of you that won't stand for this flag and pledge to this flag to go live in some of these other countries. So wait, my question, having lived in a lot of those countries, they do not let foreigners come in and own more than 49% of any business, any factory, any property. Yet we have our agriculture that's being bought up by China. Our pharmaceuticals all come from China. A lot of our ports are from China. Our World War II veterans put themselves first and thought about the future of their children and their grandchildren. And that's something that we should take a lesson from, because so many of us are so self-centered that we're worried about today and we're not worried about the future of this country and our children and our grandchildren. Now that we have Congress and we have a president, I would love to see us do a bill where no one can buy our properties without us owning 51% of it.
Foreigners, you're saying. What you're bringing up here is specifically, it's a major national security hazard on a number of fronts. Properties have been bought up outside of military bases if you're a successful company in China, you are in cahoots with the Chinese Communist Party. You can't be successful there otherwise without doing that. And so when you see these companies come in, they are absolutely embedded with the Chinese Communist Party that don't do this for no nefarious reason. They buy up ports across the globe, in Latin America, South Central America, across the Middle East, different places, very specifically, not for military yet, but they are growing each and every year their carrier battle groups to carry their military across the globe. They're producing more ships in a month than the United States of America is producing in a year. They are going out there and stealing our intellectual property on everything from our fighter jets to AI. And in every way, case, or form, they are absolutely an adversary that we are in a Cold War in. And so it really does matter that we decouple from China in a number of different places, not just the minerals that we have to get from China, which we have to get many of them from China, where we are consumers of a number of different parts of their tech that go into bigger pieces of tech that we have, because this is the trail of dominoes that actually happens with this. They say, okay, right now we're allowing you to buy I used cobalt as an example earlier, we'll use that as an example again. Right now, okay, we mine and we refine all of the cobalt, maybe don't mine all of it, but all the refineries for cobalt are in China, so they refine all of it and they say, okay, we'll let you buy some of the raw material. Then they come in and they say, we're not going to let you buy the raw material anymore. You can only buy the chip, the part that goes inside your phone or your automobile or something else. And then down the line they say, well, you know what, we're not going to let you buy the part that goes inside of that anymore. You can only buy the finished product from us, like your phone from Huawei or your Chinese automobile or whatever it might be. Those are the real dominoes that end up falling if we allow ourselves to continue down this road of letting China own us, and that's something that we are bringing to an end. So, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Second to last question here, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Susan.
Hello,
I've been in the medical field my whole life.
Thank you for waiting so long.
You're welcome. What is your stand on Mr. Trump putting a tariff on all medications coming into this country? And I'm sure quite a few people here are on some type of medication, and taking away the $35 co-fee for insulin, which we finally just got down. A lot of people can't afford their insulin, and that's when I get to see them on the bad end of their medical side.
Very good. So there are American pharmaceutical companies and there are foreign pharmaceutical companies, Chinese. Number one, we learned a lot after COVID about do not be dependent on China as it relates to pharmaceuticals, and that's a lesson that people learned in the short term and then many of them forgot about. That's something that's coming back to fruition here. We're not allowing ourselves to be in that vulnerability where we have to rely upon China for all of these things. So we're going to force a turn inward into the United States of America.
America, make these producers start producing within the United States of America, because some of these companies might be American pharmaceutical companies, but they're choosing to produce over here, choosing to produce that thing over there, instead of like a lot of our pharmaceuticals used to be produced in a place like Puerto Rico. Different laws changed that, and so there's an effort to bring all of these things inshore so that we do not have those vulnerabilities, and that's the... A little louder.
We had the hurricane that wiped out a lot of the pharmaceuticals in Puerto Rico, like our IVs, which I know because we were rationing them. So if you put tariffs on the medications that are coming in right now, I realize we need to be manufacturing our own medication. But if you put tariffs on top of the high prices that we're paying for our medications now, a lot of these people, maybe here in this audience, won't be able to afford it.
You're making a great point, man. No doubt about it. And it's something that I will absolutely pay attention to. And again, realize a lot of these tariffs bring these countries to the brink to say, this is the tariff that's going to take place if you don't change in this way. And every day that it gets closer to that day, you see that country coming forward saying, okay, and I see those countries coming forward. Every day my meetings in Washington, D.C., along with meetings with constituents, are the Prime Minister, the Trade Minister, the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, the King, the Queen, the Crown Prince, or the President of other countries. And those are meetings that we have every day coming in saying, hey, listen, we don't want this tariff. We recognize we have been doing this thing. Let's come to the table and work out a place where it's balanced and fair for both of us so that we don't go into this. And then you see the president saying, okay, listen, we can hold off on that tariff for another 60 or another 90 days because you're coming to the table and you're working with us. And I'm glad that these countries are coming to the table and working with us. I look forward to more of those coming. There's been a lot of them already, some of them going to the White House, some of them coming to the Foreign Affairs Committee, some of them going to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but there's been a lot of these countries coming to us saying, all right, we're here to make a deal. And that's a great thing for citizens of the United States of America in terms of pharmaceutical, in terms of manufacturing that's coming back in. It's been a great thing that we're seeing already. Thank you for your question today, ma'am.
Our last and final question, and then if you'll wrap it up for us, sir.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Congressman Mast.
Thank you for being here.
Real honor to be here and see you in person. I've watched your ascent over the last 2 years. It's been really full-throated speeches on the congressional floor with much fanfare. And commendations on speaking for 2 hours straight, most articulately. I imagine that's pretty difficult. There are some people that I guess have known you a lot longer. I've been speaking to Mr. Dave here, who has been singing your high praises for some time. To the question, yes. And you've been biting at the chance to answer something about your chairmanship, which congratulations on. Insofar as it relates to foreign affairs, there's a major geopolitical shift going on right now. It's been a long time since there's been something this massive. I don't have access to the same clearances that you do, and the reports and the briefs that you get. But from afar, we look at a hostile nation like Iran, where on their congressional floor chanting "Death to America, death to Israel," and President Trump is sending his friend. Not that there's anything the matter with that, but Steve Witkoff was bailed out by Qatar from a bad investment to the tune of $623 million. With the Park Lane Hotel. Not only that, but the positions that he's taking in the negotiations are convey weakness, which I don't think is in line with President Trump's policy. So again, maybe there's information that layman such as myself doesn't have access to. But that's a huge issue, and I fail to see how congressional jurisdiction is not countermanded that. Now, the sovereign might have jurisdiction there, in which case it'd be at President Trump's discretion, but that's an issue. And then one more thing, if you'll allow me, because I know you're trying to wrap up.
No, I'm not trying. I'm happy to hear from you.
The term ethnic cleansing and genocide, whatever, has been thrown around a lot, but the populations of Europe, the European countries, are being displaced by African and Arabian immigrants, refugees, invaders, call it what you want. And it's going unspoken. I don't know if they're trying to boost their populations or they're looking for military soldiers based on the demographics that they're bringing in. But from an ideological standpoint, they're really starting to diverge from American values, from democratic values, and they're adopting Islamic values. And you served when before Obama removed the jihad information and instruction from the military, which I don't know if that's been reinstituted, but there are tremendous issues and elephants in the room that nobody's talking about. What is the cause of anti-Semitism? Why does nobody want to answer that it coincides with massive amounts of Muslims going into Europe and onto the universities in this country?
Thank you for your comments today. There's no doubt that Europe has seen tremendous immigration. Syria is a perfect example. Many Syrians going into Jordan, going into Turkey, going into other parts of Europe. That's been a huge part of it. It has resulted in a lot of problems for them. People from Sudan immigrating into Europe, that's been another big place. It's an issue that Europe has to deal with. It's their borders to deal with on those fronts and decide which individuals are coming in. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to focus on American borders, make sure that American borders are secure. I hear the problem that you're speaking about in terms of, speaking to members of European parliaments and delegations that come from there and talk about the problems that they've seen with immigration. And you do see changes going on in European countries where they're cracking down on immigration as well, because it's resulted in a lot of problems for their communities. In the end, our governments are meant to serve our people. I don't like to use the word power, but for lack of a better word, power or authority or whatever the correct word might be, any of that in government comes from we the people. It comes from you all. That's where any authority of government comes from. And you said, it's an honor to be here with me. No, it's my honor to be here with each and every one of you. I work for you. This job is done for you. And we don't always agree on every single issue that goes on out there. Undoubtedly, even if we agree on a lot of things, we don't agree on everything. But every single day, the authority comes from each and every one of you. You are the we the people that is spoken about in this country, and I try to make sure every single day that whether we agree or disagree on the issues, that this government is serving the we the people that it is meant to serve, which is the we the people of the United States of America, and I work to make sure that that's the case.